The galaxy lay in ruins, its skies filled with the silent remnants of broken fleets and burning worlds. The once vibrant coalition of the Galactic Alliance, a union of dozens of alien species, now clung to survival, their forces scattered and their hopes crushed. The Zaltran Dominion, a brutal empire of insectoid conquerors, had swept across star systems with terrifying efficiency, leaving no survivors in their wake. Their bioengineered weapons and relentless swarms overwhelmed any resistance, driving species after species to extinction or servitude. The Alliance had been born out of desperation, a fragile unity forged to stop the Zaltran advance. But the diversity that once made them strong became their undoing. The Alrini, with their crystalline wings and pacifist traditions, found it impossible to adapt to the horrors of war. The Kroth, towering giants with unmatched strength, lacked the patience for strategy. Even the technologically advanced Ruthless, known for their vast intellects, found their logic failing against the chaotic ferocity of the Zaltran. Victory seemed unattainable. The Zaltran strategy was simple: overwhelm, destroy, and move on. For every Alliance fleet destroyed, the Zaltran seemed to grow stronger, feeding off the despair of their enemies. The Alliance's leaders, gathered in their dimly lit war rooms, spoke in hushed tones, their confidence eroded. They had exhausted every plan, every tactic, yet the Zaltran were at their doorstep, preparing to strike the heart of the Alliance. On the battlefield, fear was palpable. Soldiers whispered prayers to forgotten gods, and commanders gave orders they knew would lead to futile deaths. Planets that once glimmered with life were now barren wastelands, their inhabitants slaughtered or enslaved. The Zaltran spared no one, their hive mind driving them toward complete domination. For the Alliance, surrender was not an option, but fighting seemed equally hopeless. And yet, amidst the despair, rumors began to circulate. Whispers of a lost species reached even the darkest corners of the galaxy. They spoke of humans, a race believed to have vanished millennia ago. They were said to be ruthless warriors, unmatched in their ability to adapt and conquer. Their name carried an aura of both hope and fear. Some dismissed the tales as mere legends, born out of desperation. But others, clinging to the faintest shred of hope, believed the rumors might hold a grain of truth. The Alliance's most desperate leaders sent out a final plea, a transmission that echoed across the stars. A call for aid, a cry for salvation. It was a message not meant for gods or miracles, but for something far more dangerous, something that could fight the Zaltran on their own brutal terms. For weeks, the message drifted through the void, unanswered. The Alliance prepared for what they believed would be their final stand. Just as hope began to fade entirely, the stars themselves seemed to shift. A new signal arrived. Not from within the Alliance, but from deep in uncharted space. It was cold and efficient, a message of acknowledgement. No promises, no assurances, only 3 words: we are coming. The Alliance's fleet hung in the void, battered and waiting for the inevitable. Sensors picked up an approaching signal, but it wasn't Zaltran. It was something else, smaller, denser, and bristling with energy signatures unlike anything the Alliance had seen before. Moments later, the ships emerged from the darkness. Human vessels, compact and angular, forged for war rather than aesthetics. Their hulls bore scars from countless battles, but the weapons lining their exteriors hummed with deadly precision. There weren't many, only a dozen ships, but the presence they carried was undeniable. From the lead ship came a transmission, blunt and devoid of pleasantries. A human voice, sharp and commanding, cut through the Alliance's comms: "We've answered your call. The Zaltran will fall. But we don't fight for free." Inside those ships were the humans, the long-rumored species whose name had been whispered with awe and dread. They were unlike anything the Alliance had expected. They weren't physically imposing like the Kroth, nor did they possess the crystalline beauty of the Alrini. But their eyes, cold, calculating, and unyielding, spoke of a species that had seen the edge of extinction and clawed its way back. Their leader, Commander Ruth Vallin, stood at the forefront. Her demeanor radiated control, her presence commanding respect without demanding it. She spoke only when necessary, her words precise and weighted. But what truly unnerved the Alliance wasn't just the humans. It was what accompanied them. Alongside the humans came creatures that moved like shadows, their eyes glowing with an unnatural intelligence. Wolves, but not the kind found in Alliance databases. These were larger, faster, and impossibly lethal. Genetically engineered for war, they operated as both companions and weapons. Their fur glimmered with subtle armor plating, and their claws could tear through steel. Yet, despite their ferocity, there was a strange calm to them, an unwavering loyalty to the humans they followed. The Alliance leaders were wary. The humans were a far cry from the cooperative idealism that had formed the Galactic Alliance. They exuded a ruthlessness that unsettled even the Croth generals. When asked why they had come, Valin's response was chillingly simple: "We've seen what happens when the weak negotiate. We're here to win." As the Alliance attempted to brief the humans on the war's status, they quickly realized their new allies didn't need much explanation. Humanity had already studied the Zaltran tactics, dissected their weaknesses, and formulated a plan. Valin dismissed the Alliance's defensive strategies with a wave of her hand. "Defending won't win this war. You fight to survive. We fight to destroy." The wolves, silent and ever watchful, seemed to sense the unease of their alien counterparts. When one Alliance officer questioned the necessity of their presence, Valin simply smirked. "You'll understand soon enough." The humans didn't come with promises of honor or peace. They came with one goal: annihilation of the enemy. And as their wolves let out a collective howl, the sound reverberated through the fleet, a haunting prelude to the storm humanity was about to unleash. When the humans deployed, the battlefield changed overnight. The Zaltran, once relentless and unstoppable, suddenly found themselves facing an enemy that didn't hesitate, didn't retreat, and didn't flinch in the face of their overwhelming numbers. Humanity's first strike was surgical and brutal. Without warning, their ships punched through the heart of a Zaltran fleet, targeting command vessels and supply lines with unerring precision. The humans moved with a level of efficiency that the Alliance had never witnessed. They didn't fight for glory or recognition, they fought to win. The wolves, unleashed in small strike teams, proved to be as devastating as the humans themselves. Stealthy and intelligent, they infiltrated Zaltran outposts, dismantling them from the inside. A single wolf could slip through the tightest defenses, sowing chaos in its wake. Their attacks weren't just physical but psychological. Zaltran soldiers, for all their hive-mind unity, began to hesitate, unnerved by the silent predators that struck without warning. The wolves became an echo of death, their glowing eyes the last thing many Zaltran ever saw. The humans adapted quickly to the battlefield, learning and exploiting Zaltran weaknesses with terrifying speed. Where the Alliance had relied on defensive tactics and diplomacy, the humans embraced chaos. They turned planets into traps, luring Zaltran forces into ambushes and annihilating them with overwhelming firepower. Civilians were evacuated not to spare them from danger but to give humans the freedom to turn entire cities into battlegrounds. Ruth Valin made it clear: no ground is sacred. No cost is too high. We end this war here. For the Alliance, fighting alongside humans was both inspiring and unsettling. Soldiers who had once cowered at the sight of a Zaltran swarm now stood firm, emboldened by humanity's fearlessness. But they also struggled to reconcile the ruthlessness of their new allies. After one battle, where humans raised an entire moon to cut off a Zaltran retreat, an Alrini diplomat questioned the necessity of such destruction. Valin's response was cold: survival doesn't come without sacrifice. Weakness has no place in war. The Zaltran, for the first time in their history, faltered. Their hive mind, once a source of strength, became a vulnerability. Humanity exploited it relentlessly, disrupting their communication networks and sowing confusion. The Zaltran began to lose battles they should have won, their forces crumbling under the relentless assault. The Alliance, emboldened by humanity's example, started adopting more aggressive tactics. They weren't just defending anymore, they were fighting to destroy. The wolves became legends in their own right, their howls echoing across battlefields as they tore through Zaltran ranks. Soldiers began painting wolf insignias on their armor, a symbol of hope and vengeance. The Zaltran, who once marched with unshakable confidence, now hesitated at the sound of a wolf's growl. Humanity didn't just fight the Zaltran, they dismantled them piece by piece. Each victory sent a clear message across the galaxy: the humans had come not as saviors, but as the harbingers of the Zaltran's end. The final battle began with silence. The Zaltran armada, vast and imposing, loomed over the Alliance's last stronghold. For all their losses, the Zaltran still retained an overwhelming numerical advantage. Their forces stretched across the void, an unbroken wall of death prepared to deliver the finishing blow. But humanity had no intention of defending. Ruth Valen's voice cut through the comms, sharp and resolute: "We don't wait for death. We bring it to them." The humans launched first, their ships moving with ruthless precision. Smaller and faster, they weaved through the Zaltran lines, targeting critical points with relentless aggression. The Alliance forces, bolstered by humanity's tactics, followed closely, breaking their long-standing hesitation. They struck hard and fast, coordinating with an efficiency that hadn't existed before humanity's arrival. What was once a scattered coalition now moved as a unified force, inspired by the humans' unyielding resolve. On the ground, humanity's wolves led the charge. Dropped into Zaltran-controlled zones, they tore through the enemy with unmatched ferocity. Their howls echoed like war drums, unnerving even the hive-minded Zaltran. The wolves fought not as mindless weapons but as extensions of their human partners, their attacks precise and devastating. Beside them, human soldiers pushed forward, relentless in their drive to annihilate the enemy. Where the Zaltran once crushed resistance, they now found themselves overwhelmed. The Zaltran, desperate to regain control, shifted their strategy. They threw their full strength at the human-led forces, concentrating their attacks in an attempt to break their momentum. But humanity had prepared for this. They didn't rely on overwhelming numbers or rigid strategies. They adapted. Every Zaltran maneuver was met with a counterattack, every push met with a trap. Ruth Valen's voice remained calm as she directed her forces, orchestrating a symphony of destruction. "Let them come," she ordered. "We'll break them here." Amid the chaos, the tide began to turn. The Zaltran's hive mind faltered under the pressure, their unity fracturing as humanity exploited every weakness. Key command ships were obliterated, leaving the Zaltran forces disorganized and vulnerable. Alliance ships, inspired by humanity's relentless drive, pressed forward, carving through the enemy lines. For the first time, the Zaltran knew fear. But victory came at a cost. Ruth Valen, leading a critical strike on the Zaltran flagship, made the ultimate sacrifice. Her ship, surrounded and overwhelmed, pushed forward into the heart of the enemy fleet. In a final act of defiance, she detonated her vessel's core, obliterating the flagship and crippling the Zaltran command structure. The explosion lit the void, a beacon of humanity's unyielding resolve. As the Zaltran forces crumbled, the battlefield fell silent. The Alliance stood victorious, but it was humanity's mark that defined the day. Across the galaxy, the legend of the humans and their wolves spread a story of ruthless resilience and unmatched ferocity. And in the stillness of the aftermath, a lone wolf howled, its cry echoing the enduring spirit of its fallen leader.